you start? I mean, I'm very thankful for FHI360 for hosting. So definitely turn it over to you.
Oh, you're welcome. Well, hi, everybody. My name is Deborah Chamberlin. I also go by Deb. I'm the Director of Talent Acquisition with FHI360. We are an international organization. We have about 4,000 people around the world, and we have about 60 offices. And what's really important, and one of the reasons that we are a sponsor here, is that really having diversity is super important to us. And really, we're looking for talented individuals. So we want to give back as well as to share with you how you can begin your career, or you could further your career in international development. So I'll share a little bit more in a moment, but perhaps I could ask my colleague Princess to introduce herself to you.
Thank you very much. I'm Princess Bazley Bethea. I am the director of the Together Project and Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion at Interaction. Interaction is an alliance membership organization. So we have about 200 members who are all US-based NGOs. And FHI360 is one of our very esteemed members. And so we do a lot of different things at Interaction, but specifically it's a space for US-based NGOs to coordinate together across humanitarian practice and policy, global development, and public policy. And yeah, so I'm looking forward to our discussion and hearing questions from you all.
Super. Ah, there's Byron. Hi, Byron.
Hey, how y'all doing?
Good. We were buying some time and introducing ourselves. So over to you. We've got a group of folks in here. They can hear us, although we can't hear them. So if you'd like to go ahead, we've just introduced who we are and who we're with. If you'd like to step in. Thanks.
Can do, and thank you very much, Deb and Princess. My name is Byron L. Williams. I currently work for the United States Department of Agriculture, specifically Animal and Plant Health Inspection Service as a training specialist. So my department really deals with the safeguarding and the monitoring of trade as it pertains to live and imports and exports, as well as plants and things like that. I am from the great city of Las Vegas, Nevada. I now live here in DC. I also I've worked for Corps as a diversity outreach specialist, as a recruiter, and have some international experience and background. And a lot of that being was getting to know more of and I should say more so supporting the efforts of getting more people of color into international affairs, foreign policy, and national security as kind of a passion, as well as a purpose with all the jobs and my recent experience.
Super. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I think that Earl will be joining us shortly. He's our moderator, and perhaps while we're waiting for this, shall I go ahead and perhaps begin with my section then? What we were thinking that you may want to know, and you being our audience, is how do you get into international development? How does this work, and how do you get yourself further? So one of the questions that I was going to address for you is, how does a professional marketplace work, and how did I get here? So a little bit about my background. I'm originally from Southern Africa, born in Zambia, grew up in Namibia, and then finished my schooling in South Africa. I would say that if I can give any of you a tip, say yes to just about every opportunity. You never know where it would get you. Mine started off at a cocktail party that my boss said no to. And somebody said to me, "Oh, your boss isn't here. Well, we've got a ticket for him. Would you like to come along?" I was a little bit nervous. I didn't know what it was about. And I didn't realize that was going to take my career into human resources. This was in South Africa during the apartheid era. We were really looking at being diverse and really trying to challenge the rules at the time. And so that opportunity ultimately led me to America. The second thing that I would say is, so I was in HR, I was in recruiting, I was always in the for-profit side. And after a little while, it really didn't have any meaning to me. And I wanted to make a difference. And I wanted to work for an organization that had a mission. And I could not get anybody to answer my resume, to my knock on the door. So I changed careers. I went to university, and I also traveled around the world as well. And I share this because all of your experience matters, particularly in international development. I didn't have the experience as a mid-level career that everybody was looking for. Nobody would give me a chance. And I kept sort of saying, I'll take any job. And people were saying, no, we don't want you. And so what I had to do was to change my resume to bucket how my experience, even though it wasn't work experience, might help an organization. And when they saw where I'd worked and what I'd done, even though it wasn't actually working in that arena, somebody took a chance and went, oh, you've got a little bit of insight to this. So what I would say is that FHI360 is a global organization, as I mentioned earlier in my introduction. And really what we're looking at is we're looking at a workforce that is really diverse. We serve people around the world in a number of arenas in global health, education, looking at those that are marginalized. And so your experience is really important to us, but we get a lot of candidates. So how and where could you basically get an entree into our organization? I would say, and I'll go into a little bit about what we do in a moment, we really need to hear your voice in a cover letter as to what, why is our mission important to you? But perhaps also tell us, what it is that you might bring to us. I've got experience in these countries, or I've studied X, Y, and Z, or this is the journey of my life. I grew up next to a game reserve. I didn't live near a lot of people, and that really isn't relevant, but it also makes me understand people who are remote and some of the challenges. You also have a very unique viewpoint. And so at FHI360, we really have a look. I mentioned that diversity was important to us. It's not just hiring people with diverse backgrounds, but you bring diverse perspectives as well. And the people that we serve are diverse as well. So, how and where might your experience, even if you're a college leaver and you're competing against all your classmates, how and where could that experience benefit us? And try and think about what's a little bit different than the two people that you took exams next to. And that's what we want to hear about. I've got a couple of more things that I could chat about, but why don't I give my colleagues a chance to chat? So, Princess, how about you? Thanks.
Thank you. I think with that, going off that stream, I do want to underscore a couple of Deb's tips. I think one for me in starting and trying to jump into the marketplace, I think doing the things that make you happy and you're passionate about is really important. Even as we all know that there's a level of we just have to live. So you have to get a job, you have to get a paycheck, you have to pay bills. But even as you volunteer or do other things, civic engagement that really interest you, I think that's really important as you're trying to either enter this particular field or as you're growing into it. And for example, I'll say that when I was an undergrad, I did about 800 hours of volunteer service. So mind you, that was a part of a service learning scholarship. But even if not, I did a lot of other volunteering. And I think that what that helped me to do, one, because I was passionate about volunteering, but it also gave me an entryway to look at a lot of different nonprofits and a lot of different just practitioner work. And that has probably been one of the things that I will look back on as even before starting a formal career that I can say helped me the most, because I was able to really be, when you're a volunteer and intern, you really actually have sort of that insight into these organizations, into these groups, and you get that firsthand experience without the responsibility, but of knowing what's happening. And it gave me a lot of great experience and insight firsthand. And I think second, as you're in this marketplace and moving around, I had about a 7-year work experience. I'm also a returned Peace Corps volunteer. But I had about 7 years between my undergraduate degree and my master's degree. And I think that also was another helpful point for me to sort of take some time before jumping into the huge commitment of a master's degree, and not knowing for sure what major, what sort of direction I wanted to go into, and taking that time to work professionally, to travel, to take advantage of opportunities. And then once I really got a good sense of what I wanted to do and where I wanted to go, to then major. And I went to American University and majored in ethics, peace, and global affairs with School for International Service over at American University. And I think that also helped me to, as you get into those programs, of course they have their own internal career development and networks and things like that, but having so much work experience helped me to navigate that marketplace, and I think better grow into a position instead of basically starting as an entry level into an international organization. And I say that because after my master's degree ended at AU, one of my first positions is at Interaction that I felt like really tied to that master's degree. And so Interaction, again, is a space where NGOs are, come to coordinate and do a lot of different things across humanitarian and the development field. And I feel like I was most prepared because I had a long work experience, but also because I took the time during my master's degree to also pay attention to where who was hiring, who was doing work, who was interested in, and just was able to be a little bit more strategic about it as opposed to just being reactive to needing a job or needing to be hired quickly. So yeah, I think that, as it can be a really tough question about this marketplace of international affairs. But yeah, I would give those two pieces of advice, to volunteer or to stay close to what you're passionate about, even if you're not getting paid for it. And then secondly, to take the time before jumping into a master's degree to really know what you're interested in, and to really take that however much time you need before making that sort of financial commitment as well. So yeah, I'll turn it over to Byron if he has any thoughts on that.
Yeah. So, yeah, good. Unmuted. So I would say definitely, like, looking at this, I think the marketplace in general, one of the things that I quickly learned was needing to network, and to network with purpose, and to always bring value to your network as well. I had a gentleman during my internship back in Vegas, where I'm from. He said your net net worth is determined by your network. And for what he was saying, it was really like what can your network bring to you, as well as vice versa. So I didn't look at it in terms of money, but more so what can you contribute, as well as, depending on how you look at it, when can you and how can you lean on your network. So I would say definitely something that I look at right now, whether it's this marketplace, whether it is, when I entered the workforce, I've been working for a long time, and something that I've always done is network, but more so in my recent years when it comes to international relations, foreign policy, is really networking as much as I can, and networking with a purpose. That's really much like Princess. I was also I am a returned Peace Corps volunteer. I served in the small African nation of Lesotho as a youth development volunteer, where I worked with HIV and AIDS, health promotion programs and projects. Also, I served in Ukraine as an educator, as a university instructor, as a Peace Corps volunteer too. And so out of those two experiences, I really learned that in kind of becoming part of my community, and also connecting people to my resources, was a lot of networking and teaching people how to network. Deb had made a good point of, and I put this in the chat too, one of the ways to really kind of break into this field, or to be in this field, and to really do it with purpose, is to say yes to opportunities as they come, and not at the sake of necessarily, I'd say more so making sure that you're able to do it in a healthy way, but you never know where opportunity may take you, where one yes may take you. Well, yes for stepping in for Deb, for your supervisor, or for a coworker of yours, has led to a career that has taken you all kind of places, and now to FHI360 as the director of talent acquisition. And so looking at any marketplace, but in particular for international relations, foreign policy, and national security, is network with purpose, always bring value to your network, and say yes to as many opportunities as you can, because you never know where it may lead you.
Fantastic. Well, I see that we've got a number of questions coming in, so maybe we can all just sort of address them. Tarika or Teresa, I hope I said your name correctly. How do you stay connected and how do you add that value? I think that's a really good question. LinkedIn is something that you should definitely add just about everybody professional to that you can. One of the ways, and I think many of you are excellent at this at social media, it might be how are you using that to post articles? Perhaps you don't have a lot of experience and it might just simply be I'm volunteering with this particular organization as I'm looking for a position, and that sends a message out to the marketplace, and that'll go to all of your contacts as well. Sometimes you can't stay in touch with everybody, but sometimes you can notice their birthdays or something along those lines. So there's a number of ways. Not everybody you'll keep in touch with.
I would also add to that is to pay attention to associations and groups like BPIA. This is a really great way to network with either folks you already knew or to meet new people. And also there are a lot of so many WCAPs for women who may be in this field. There's also Black Women in Development. I'll list a few on the side, but there are so many different sort of associations and groups to be a part of. And also remember your universities, your undergrad and your graduate alumni groups, and stay in network and in communication with those groups.
If I might build on what Princess was saying, back to an earlier point of how do you stay in touch, it might just be a matter of, oh, I see you're a member of this particular, let's just say Black Women in Development, and we both went to X. I'd love to ask you advice. Most times people will say yes to that. It's very flattering to them because you want the advice and you're not actually asking them for a job. So that's another way to stay in touch. I thought if you don't mind, I'll answer Millicent's question, and then perhaps we can go to somebody else here as well. Millicent, the becoming jack of all trades is not necessarily a bad thing. It's how do you help a recruiter see where your skill set is? Sometimes we actually want to know that you've got quite a bit of experience. And to Princess's earlier point, where is your passion? Or with a Byron, where's your passion? So you might say, gosh, I've tried these 5 different positions. I think I've now found my particular place. What I can see is I'm really good at is project management or monitoring and evaluation. X, Y, and Z didn't really suit me because here's where my strengths are. So I think sometimes that's really good. And sometimes we want people who are fairly general. You have to separate and have a look at the job description to see, are we saying X years of this focused experience, or do we need somebody that's a generalist? Sometimes it could really be to your favor. So don't feel bad if that's what you're doing. It's just a matter of where do you think it might want to go to. How about what other questions do we have?
Look, I saw Teresa, is it Teresa or Tarika? Please, if you can put the correct way to say it in the chat, so I want to make sure with a C, hard C, or with an S. But I saw your comment about kind of in-person networking that you're good at, but once the person is, or once out of sight, out of mind. I think in particular right now, thinking about how technology keeps so many of us connected all the time. It's really thinking about where you can maybe touch 1 or 2 people a day. So what that does for me is it keeps me in the mode of always thinking about who I have not touched, as well as maybe I need to go outside of the people who I speak to on a regular. I look at my network, and a lot of my network when I was younger definitely focused around, because I'm one of the jobs I had in Las Vegas, I worked for a casino. So a lot of my network revolved around hospitality. And then as I started trying to move into other fields, I was like, oh, I have to actually, build my network outside of hospitality. So I made it a point to really look at, people. I made it a point. One of my goals was every 3 days to have made contact with 4 people that I had not spoken to in the last 2 weeks. And so it's kind of setting small goals like that really help you to think about other people or other networks or other organizations where you maybe don't touch base with them all the time, but at least they're kind of in your rotation, as well as adding different people and different organizations to your rotation.
I saw a question from Ikram, and it asks, what is your advice on being hired onto different development orgs after having internships with federal government like USAID? I think one of the first things I would think about would be paying attention to the job descriptions, especially those job descriptions that say, have you had experience with USAID contracts, or et cetera, et cetera. And while you may not at the internship level have had that particular whatever amount of years they might be asking for in the contracts field, that because you've been a part of USAID, and that organization is obviously an implementing partner of USAID, you should just continue to look for positions at that organization, or even, sometimes I say apply, right? Like you could apply, and maybe there, if maybe there is opportunity to learn on the job, but if you're not necessarily qualified for that position that specifically says USAID contracting experience, but for sure, again, that is an organization that is an implementing partner and would value, and maybe not at that particular position, but would value your experience at USAID in another position. So that's probably one hard, fast thing I would probably be looking for in job descriptions. Another thing I would say is, I'm going to assume that you were, or that the person is interning in the DC area. So COVID withstanding, so not just, but for teleworking, so many opportunities to do networking, so many internship opportunities, so many like happy hours or just events, also briefings and all of that sort of stuff. And I would say try to get in as many of those type of events and briefings and workshops or trainings, or even the happy hours, as you can get in if you were working in the DC area. And I think that is a great opportunity to network with groups, with the development groups.
If I may add to what you said, I think that as we look at Ekram's question, don't underestimate, even though you may not have had full responsibility for doing something, you've still got knowledge and you've got a little bit of an insight. And that might be something that you want to put a little bit higher on your resume. One of the mistakes that I see people make, and when I say mistakes, is you tell us what your job is. You don't tell us what you're capable of doing. And sometimes when you're early in the workforce, you're like, well, I don't have a lot of experience. You might want to say, assisted on a project that did X, Y, and Z, where we learned about water and sanitation, or I worked on a malaria project, or I've had exposure to X. That may just give you a competitive edge over somebody else. So when you talk about your USAID experience, for us at FHI360, of course, that's one of our major donors, we'd be very interested in that experience. But what is it that you've got a little bit of insight into? So while you might not have had the full responsibility, don't hesitate sharing with us what you've done. What other questions do we have? Okay. Good. Anybody else got any questions for us? While we're filling a little bit of time, you're welcome, Ekram. While we're filling a little bit of time, think about what you're good at. I got to Washington, D.C. I had stars in my eyes, and I was at the nonprofit world, and I'm like, here I am. Who wants to hire me? And I was really disappointed. Not a lot of people came knocking. So then I had to basically look at my resume and say, hang on a second, it was a little bit too private sector focused. And so what was it that I might be able to do? And so I had to think about not my job responsibilities, but maybe what were some of my achievements? Is it organization? Is it networking? Is it some other facet? And I think it goes back to the earlier point is what are you really good at? If you weren't paid money for it, what would your friends and family laugh and go, oh, you do that all the time? Those are sometimes the competencies and the traits that we look at when we're hiring somebody. So don't underestimate that too. Yeah.
Okay, we do have a question from Susan. When job boards don't ask for a cover letter, do you recommend adding to the PDF? How can candidates sell soft skills? I'll start with the first part of the question, and then I'll let my other colleagues chime in. Honestly, I just reviewed a lot of applications recently, and I'm gonna be honest with you. If for whatever reason the position doesn't ask for something, don't include it. Is just my personal advice. I think, and then to also be very clear and include everything that is actually specified to be included, and don't miss out on something. So reading carefully, if at this point, if an HR person or hiring manager did not ask for a cover letter, there's a reason. I would say, and so I don't think that it's going to help you to add it. Honestly, it might hurt you, especially or maybe just doing a first round of just looking at resumes solely. And if they didn't have to find your resume by going through your page or page and a half cover letter that they didn't necessarily ask for, that might not be a show of following details. But that's my personal thing when I'm reviewing. Any other? What do you guys think, Deborah and Byron?
Hi, and I see that Earl and Deirdre's joined us, so welcome.
Yes.
Hi, Deborah.
Hi.
Hello.
Let me just say first, with apologies, I was under the misunderstanding that we were going to delay the sessions until the speakers came along. Then I realized my panel must be going on. It appears, and I hope that it's going very well. Byron and Deborah can prompt me as to whether there's anything I might add, what we had in mind. But by all means, I have no intention of trying to go back to have you all cover any ground. Ambassador Naj's presentation was excellent. You'll be able to see it later. And Ambassador Young is about to come on. But by all means, why don't you all proceed? And I won't try to convert the flow of what you've done already.
Super. Perhaps I could just finish answering this question, and then perhaps we could hear some of your advice. That the panelists might, or our listeners might be interested in. Now, interestingly enough, with what Princess was saying, I think I'm going to give a very different viewpoint, and this is what it's going to be like in the marketplace, because you really don't know who's reading your resume. So we're looking at resumes, and if I get 100 resumes for one position, and I haven't asked for a cover letter, but somebody has the initiative to send a cover letter and it's well written, you're actually probably going to get my attention. Then maybe I'm really tired of looking at 800 resumes, and this one might be the one that speaks to me. What I would say, though, is to Princess's point, really make sure you know your audience. And instead of saying why the organization matches your dreams, turn it around to say, this organization really impacts me. I once worked for an environment organization, and I grew up near a game reserve in Namibia. And so I'd seen the animals, and this organization was an environment. And so I was able to say, I'm really interested in your mission because of X, Y, and Z. And I think that might have just been the hook, because I may not have been the best qualified, but it was enough for somebody to pick up the telephone saying, let's chat. So you never know who your audience is. But if you do write it, make sure that you really mention the mission. Make sure that you really share an understanding of what you might be able to bring to the position. Make sure you proof it. A poorly written cover letter could lose you the job in a heartbeat. With mistakes, that is. Byron, any other thoughts you want to add?
If you are going to do a cover letter and the description did not ask for a cover letter, just make sure it is a strong one. Make sure you have people review it, and make sure you review it again before you upload it. I think more than anything, a cover letter, because in a number of my jobs, when I look at cover letters, I'm looking at what a resume cannot tell me. So, and a way for that, the purpose of a cover letter is to connect what you are applying to what you have done, the skills you would like to highlight, maybe things you've accomplished. That is not necessarily a repeat of just saying I worked at a place for X amount of years and my job was. It is you really saying, here's how my skills from this job connect to what I am applying to. So use that cover letter is meant to be kind of your springboard into your resume, not necessarily a repeat of your resume. But I also think that, if I think it really depends on, if you have, like, say, a personal contact within a job, if it makes it, I say if you can make it easy for the person reviewing the resumes, then do as best as you can to make it easy for them.
Good. So I wondered, perhaps, Earl, we could sort of hand back to you if you'd like to introduce yourself and Deborah. And then we had got up to Daniel Titherington's question. We haven't answered his question as yet. So we were sort of just, we'd done our introductions and then we were going through questions. So I don't know if you'd like to have a chance to give a little bit about your background or any thoughts.
I don't know if did you say Princess was going to do that as well, or you've already done that, Princess?
I've already done it.
Okay, good. No, thank you. Again, very sorry, got a miscue there. I'm delighted that those of you who here have joined this panel. I think it's just a hugely important one, and delighted that we have the speakers, the able speakers that we do to address the issues that you've talked about. As we talked and are preparing for this, we recognize that in any time, these times in particular, working through the unknowns of which employment opportunities to pursue, one has to answer a lot of questions about how do I make my choices, what is their system, what is their process, and how do I make it work for me. So those are kind of driving questions. And one of the things we thought about was the challenge that a job seeker faces in sort of, organizations are looking for you as employers, but you're looking for the organization as employees, but you're also looking for organizations as employers. So you have a selection process to make as well. So a question that I would think is important and would ask the panelists to speak to this is, how does an organization demonstrate to job seekers that it values and is really intentional about creating diversity in its workforce? Because just as you as employers get it used to be when I was working a stack of resumes, but now it's a computer run of resumes that you look at and you take the top 10%. How does a job seeker make the decision? Yeah, this is just the right organization for me. How do you demonstrate intentionality about diversity to your job seeking audience? Byron, you want to speak to that, or is Byron there?
I can. Yes, okay. I am. Sorry,
yeah.
I was also knocking out some stuff in the chat. So okay. I think in signaling intentionality of diversity to your public, one of the things that I look for is mission, vision, and values. So looking to see like what those statements are on the organization's webpage. I also look for, especially if they if it's like a U.S. based organization, I look through their marketing material, and I do that because I have been in spaces that where I stand out for a variety of reasons, whether it's me being black, whether it's me being black, or me being a black man, or me having locks. I've also been in spaces where there aren't many people like me. And so I know when a company is using either the same person or the same few people or the same several people in their marketing material. So if they have a marketing or a mission, vision, and value statements that refer to diversity, but they use the same ones over and over, to me that signals either they do not have relationships with people in their company, or they are not willing to reach out to build more relationships either in their company, organization, or across the span of their agency. But what I really look for or what I kind of look for in looking at intentionality is mission, vision, and values. I also look to see if they have some type of forward-thinking statement. I also look to see if there's to see what some of their metrics are. So like when I was doing research for some of the organizations I was interested in, what do you call it? Government organizations. I actually looked at their civil rights and diversity numbers as it pertained to human capital as well as promotion. That takes a little bit of digging, which I was willing to do, but yeah, I think especially when I have looked at international relations, foreign policy, national security, is really looking at what a company is showing you and what a company is saying. So that way, it's me making the choice to either go in knowing that they are hopefully walking the walk, or if it's knowing that there's space for me to hopefully contribute to change and hopefully get others on board with that.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Deborah, anything to add, or Princess?
Yes, I loved what. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Princess.
No, go ahead.
Okay. I loved what Byron was saying about having a look at the website. Any US organization that's over a certain size should have an equal opportunity statement. Some of those can be very perfunctory, and some of them, how obvious is it? How hard do you have to work? Is it at the forefront, or is it buried at the bottom of something? That's not always indicative of the organization, but take it a step further. And how and what where is the organization supporting young professionals, and how are they supporting these diversity missions, or whatever the missions are? For example, we have an equity and diversity inclusion group. We've also got ERGs, employee resource groups, that bring together folks from Africa. They bring together the LGBTQ community and many others. Some of this you can't see because it's on our intranet, but hopefully some of that you'll be able to see on the website. And then to take it a step further, not only is everybody like you or is diversity demonstrated, but how are you going to be supported as a professional? So that if you do get in and everybody's a little bit different, that's okay. But then how and where are you going to be supported? And try and have a look to see what the organization story is as far as that goes too. Yeah. Princess, additional thoughts?
I think the only thing that I would add differently would be that when you get into the room with your interview panel, is to ask the question. And I think that's an excellent question if it hasn't been sufficiently answered from the websites or from recording or whatever personal digging you might have done while you were applying. Ask that of who you're interviewing and pay attention to their answer. And I think that it is a good opportunity when you are in the interview process to ask those sort of questions. And another, even as you onboard, that you took position and you onboard, to continue to ask that question and to, once you get, closer to the HR, whomever it is, to specifically get these things that may not have been readily available on the internet or just from your personal digging. But now that you're in the organization and you're there new, ask for everything on that subject, so that you know what's available to you, the resources that are available to you, and make sure you get those things in hand early on if you do join or onboard into that organization, and you're not super clear about their DEI opportunities and their DEI policy. And then if you're, to be honest, we work with Interaction as a membership of 200 groups, and some of our groups have a large capacity in this area. Some of our groups may not have a large capacity in this area, and some groups may have 5 to 10 staff, right? And so they may not have these things that seem normal or you think would come from organizations, just because they don't have the capacity. Then, take on that work, which I know is hard to say, and help them create those pieces, because it may not even be ill-intentioned. It could be true capacity to sit down and think about it. And so I say, just knowing that there are a lot of organizations that are understaffed and overworked, and may not have the pieces that you're looking for, don't necessarily count them out if you can't find them quickly.
Very good.
If I may, add another point. I think one of the questions sometimes when you're interviewing, don't forget you're interviewing the company that you want to work for, the organization. Definitely ask them about the culture. When I got into international development, I'm like, yay, it's international and we're all connected. And the culture with the international officers was very different. It was us versus them. And I'm just looking at it saying it's us. So sort of what is their viewpoint, and how are you going to get connected as well with others that are not just in America as we all are right now, but that will be international too. So you're looking at a lot of different ethnic groups, races, and a lot of other people beyond America.
Very good. Was Deidre going to make a point, or go ahead, Byron?
If Deidre was going to make a point, go ahead. Oh, sorry. I don't know if she.
Deidre, there you are.
There we go.
Yeah. We can't hear you.
There, hello?
Yes, can hear you now.
Okay,
Thank
great.
you. Thank you.
Thank you. I was going to say it makes a big difference if you look around. Prior to COVID, when you're going into the office, look and see where you find people and if they look like you. I went, when I moved into international development, one of the things that I did was I would look at the websites and I would see who was there. And some of the websites don't show you everyone. So then I would go to LinkedIn. It's a wonderful resource. You can go and find all the employees based on a company, based by the company. You do a company search, and then you look at all the employees that are employed or used to be employed by that company, and look at those faces. Now, saying that doesn't mean that a company that doesn't have a lot of people who look like you is going to be a poor fit. That just means that there might be work. And that means that you do your homework when you get in there, when you're interviewing to make that decision. That's definitely been the case with my organization, where we are extremely inclusive. And we've launched a comprehensive equity, diversity, and inclusion initiative that was launched 4 years ago that is covering every aspect from recruiting and hiring to promotions to retention to pathways to leadership. Because we've been very explicit in saying that our goal is to make sure that we have diverse representation at the highest levels of the organization. And we're holding our senior leadership accountable for that outcome.
Very good. We have, according to the clock here, about just about 10 minutes left. One of the things I'd ask, well, first to say that BPIA's ongoing mission, and as we explore and develop our capacity in using platforms such as this, we hope to expand both geographically and programmatically how we might do this. But this is making sure that all those people who are in the market for, maybe in the market for, don't yet know they're in the market for careers in international affairs, will have their search eased by ready availability of information. And with communications information technology, there's no reason not to know everything that's going on in the world. A little bit of exaggeration, but so we're going to capture through this program and through all the others, all that we've learned from the various speakers, from the various panels, so that that is accessible. So what I'd like to do in this remaining time, if any of you know of either in your own organizations or in your sector, opportunities or roads from here to there in a particular career area, share those now, or talk about how one might identify those roads. I know that I say that working in international affairs overseas and in Washington, we can sometimes start to assume, oh, it's just out there, just check this. The further you get away from major centers, the lower level of awareness there is, I found. So, and we're not just looking to service the major centers. So if you can speak to possibilities, for the specific jobs, job sources, or job banks, or career path opportunities that you want to mention to go on record here for others to pick up. I welcome any of you to share those now, all of you to share those now.
Great.
Princess?
I'll get started. Interaction hosts the NGO job board, and it's ngojobboard.org. And that is a space where all of our members can post their positions, but we also post positions from different federal agencies as well. So I would highly recommend checking that out pretty regularly and getting on a newsletter for the NGO job board. And I think to your question about becoming less DC centered, I link back to sort of my comments earlier about just the graduate schools and universities who are pretty much known for international fields. And so looking at some of these major universities that, like UC Berkeley, if you're in the West Coast, or just a handful of others across the country who have these, who, because they have the majors, also have the sort of career development spaces, or they may be posting jobs, or even if they're not necessarily, if some of those things can be behind alumni paywalls or alumni walls. But if you follow them on LinkedIn, we're talking a lot about LinkedIn, and follow some of these like the university spaces and the scholarly spaces around these these various parts of humanitarian work and development work, you'll find that they share a lot of opportunities on LinkedIn, a lot of job opportunities outside of the hub of the DC, New York area. And another good space, I think, to look for or to start a job search outside of the DC, New York area hub is, again, LinkedIn, and really specifying in your job search that you are looking for wherever state you live, or picking a few states if you're looking for Southwest or upper Northwest, and actually choosing those states in your LinkedIn job search, or your Monster, or whomever you're doing job searches. And then you'll honestly just pull the area that you live in, and then the area that you want to be in as well.
Okay, very good. Byron?
Yes, and one of the things that I have learned too is, and this is, I tell people a lot of the things that I have learned have been because I've made the mistakes and realized them much later in my career, is use your undergrad, graduate institution, their career services, whatever service that they have, because you have paid for their service by paying to be a student there. So whether it's undergraduate, whether it's graduate, use their career services. Particularly because I know a lot of us obviously here, have an interest in international affairs. So definitely look at like your departments that have a focus on international affairs, political science. Look at your career services department. Look at your alumni relations. You never know where somebody may be, where you can make a connection, and that can help you to get to the next step. Another thing is when you're looking at job boards, some of the ones that I've learned about is unjob.org for United Nations, impactpool.org, DevEx, Interaction, careers.un.org. So just looking at a number of international organizations and looking at what their job boards have, and also just keeping abreast of what news is coming out of their organizations too. But if there's nothing that you hear from me right now, use your undergraduate and graduate institutions, particularly your career services offices, and hopefully the departments where there's like an international relations department, political science department, geography department, whatever, kind of business department, or whatever it is that you're looking at.
Right. Very good. Deidre, did you have a point? Please.
Yes, I did. I was going to say also make sure that you tailor your resume or your CV to the requirements of the job description. Increasingly, you have to go through some automated system where it's going to look for keywords. And so if you don't have the right keywords in that job description, you're not going to even hit the eyes of the recruiter if they have like 500 applications. And so you're doing yourself a favor if you look at it and you use the same verbs the same nouns that they use to help it go through there. What you want to do is make sure that you're not just sending a generic resume. You want your resume to read exactly like the job description, honestly, but as closely to it as possible. So that way the recruiter doesn't have to imagine whether or not you fit.
Very good. Let me quickly, I'm going to lose it. Someone is asking whether, given COVID, and we're doing a lot of, internships virtually, does it make sense these days to apply for internships that are virtual, that are miles away from you? Do we have any experience with that, Deborah, for example? Yes, yeah.
Yeah, thank you. We do. So there is a great complexity with paying taxes in different organizations. So as an employer, we have to be registered in a number of states. So you saying I'll work at my beach cottage or mum and dad's place in the mountains or whatever it is, may be a lovely solution. Indicate that you're flexible and state I could either work in DC or in Colorado, for example, because if we're not registered in Colorado, we may actually weed you out as far as that goes. However, you certainly could still apply. If you're flexible to work out a couple of places, that probably would open it up to you as well. And if I may, another point of using LinkedIn is that panel where you say what you are. So mine might say Director of Talent Acquisition. Experiment with that when you're looking for a position. You might state, have international experience and have worked at USAID and one nonprofit looking for a new opportunity. You might find somebody reaches out to you and say, oh, we're looking for you. If that doesn't get anything, then change it the next week. Looking to utilize my experience in XYZ. Also, don't overlook the job groups in LinkedIn. This is a BPIA is a fantastic organization, but there could be members that you've met today that are members of something else on LinkedIn, and you can go into that, ask to join the group. It's always free, and then you might announce there and say, I'm looking to use my experience in XYZ. I'm looking for a position. Who do you know? And there are folks like all of us there that may be well connected going, oh, this is just what I'm looking for. So you never know where that opportunity comes from.
No, that applies individually and it applies organizationally. And in that regard, I'll say Deborah's here representing FHI360, which is one of the partner and platinum sponsor organizations that has made this event for us possible. And it is our goal to continue to expand our network with such organizations because, it just expands the geographic reach, the number of communities we can reach, and the efficiency with which we can do that. So besides connecting, we want to connect with FHI, connect through FHI with others, same with the other sponsoring and partnering organizations, to the point that we have a really rich network of sources and resources for people looking to enter international careers fairs, get to that point 7 to 8 years in where they've done what they do for that period and are thinking, so what do I do now? How do I transition? Very important time we find in our mentoring program that we do. As well as those folks, we haven't talked about this much yet, but haven't done this a few years back now. When you get to that point in the line where you realize, well, I've done this long enough. Retirement is coming up, but I'm not going to stop working. What are the possibilities then? All of those are things that we want to be more informed of and conversant about, and look to all of our partners to help us extend into that area, as a resource for folks looking to make those important decisions in their life at that time. We're getting close. We're about over or need to move to the next point. Let me ask if Deborah, were you raising your hand for something, or let me ask if there are any last points before we move on. Okay, she wasn't. She's shaking her head. Again, let me thank all of you very much. I'm sorry I missed the first half. I'll go back and re-roll the tape, as they say, and make sure that I get everything. We really appreciate your committing your time to not just being on tonight, but preparing for this. We know that takes time, and we will, by all means, be back in touch. We'll by all means be back in touch. And I believe Byron has a final point.
Yes, I wanted to say, because we have talked a lot about LinkedIn, because a lot of international relations work is building relations and making connections. So as possibly one tool, as you're using LinkedIn, just make sure as you're requesting people to be part of your network that you're also sending a personal message to let people know where you met them, why you may be of interest, or what you found interesting in their profile. So that way they can also kind of remember why you're connecting with them. And that goes a long way in helping you to stand out as you're building these relationships in this field that can really pay off dividends in your career.
That's an excellent point. Excellent point. Again, thank you also, Deborah.
Sorry, I just wanted to say that while you're looking for a job and you might feel despondent, know that it's really hard for all of us as well. We need your talent and we need you. And so a little bit to Deirdre's point, it's up to you to really check your email and to tell us how you can help us. We need your skills to help us with our mission. So don't give up. We're looking for partnerships in all sorts of ways. Thanks. Back
Very
to
good.
you, Earl.
Excellent. So we're going to go on to take a look at these other great panels. I'm so pleased to have been part of this one. Wish I'd been part of the whole thing, but I hope that the folks who've listened in, that we've gotten some great chats from, will follow on. And Byron might have said, Byron might have said earlier that indeed, if those of you who are on chat have questions that come up later about this panel, please send them in. All of the panelists have agreed to be available to respond to things asked after the conference is over. With that, good night to you all. I'll see you in the other sessions or in the general session. Take care.
Thank you. Bye, everybody.
Bye. I guess I just hit leave here, right? Take care.